expanded that scholarship for thousands of Georgians.
I walked into the hallway and saw a girl in the wheelchair crawling on the ground. 3 older bullies had tipped her out and were filming her kicking her books away. She was crying, trying to reach her chair while they laughed. I ran over to try help, but they threw me into the lockers instantly. These guys claimed to have gang ties, and rumors said they brought guns to school. And I knew I couldn't take all 3 of them, so I ran to find someone. And the first person I bumped into was Mr. Potter. Now, Mr. Potter was the nerdiest teacher. He was the president of chess club, said okie dokie, and called everybody scholar. But he also had faded tattoos covering his forearms that seemed the total opposite of nerdy. I told him what was happening, and he put down his teacup, walking towards the hallway instantly. I worried the bullies would do something to him, so I followed him. But even though I only got there a minute after him, the hallway was now empty. I couldn't find them anywhere, and when I had Mr. Potter for class later, neither he nor the girl showed up. I got a bad feeling and went looking for them when suddenly my phone started blowing up. One of the bullies posted the video of the girl being tipped from her wheelchair onto the year group Instagram page. I was watching it in horror when I heard their voices. I looked up and saw the 3 bullies walking with their fists clenched. "We know you told Potter. You know what happens to snitches where we're from." I was terrified and ran out of school immediately. I sprinted down the street, and that's when a black car pulled up near me. A guy with a neck tattoo rolled his windows down. "You in Mr. Potter's class?" I was confused, but nodded, trying to seem calm. He held up photos of the 3 bullies. "Which one's the worst?" I pointed to the biggest one, and he nodded, then pulled away. I was taken aback and wondered what that was about. But the next day, I walked into class, and nobody was there. Not the girl, not Mr. Potter, but this time the 3 bullies weren't either. I sat down, and a few minutes later, the door opened. The 3 bullies. I started sweating. They locked eyes with me and started walking over. I braced myself for whatever was coming, but then one of them handed me a note, a handwritten apology. I looked up, and all 3 of them were shaking. They mumbled sorry and sat down. A minute later, Mr. Potter walked in cheery as ever. "Okie dokie, scholars, let's get started." The bullies froze up even more. Then another minute later, there was another knock. "Gentlemen," Mr. Potter turned to the bullies. "I think someone wants to come in." All 3 stood up and immediately walked to the front, their knees shaking, and held the door open. The wheelchair girl rolled in. I had no idea what was going on, but at lunch my phone started dinging again. The school's Instagram page, and this time the video was the 3 bullies apologizing. I looked up and saw one of them alone, so I walked over and asked what happened. He seemed scared to even talk. "They put us in a trunk and drove for over an hour," he said. "Tied us up in a warehouse and said they'd kill us if we didn't drop the gangster act." He paused. "You know who they called for permission to let us go?" I shook my head. "They called him OG." He pointed to Potter's classroom. "Goddamn chess club." The school bully slammed his hands down on the table in front of me, and I knew my day was about to get worse. I was just sitting down at my usual table in the cafeteria when I heard the dreaded sound of Leo's voice. His dad was the town mayor, and he could get away with murder. The teachers all turned a blind eye when they saw him hurting someone. He wasn't afraid to get physical with people, but lately, he has been targeting me. I jumped when he slammed his fist down on the table in front of me. Then he grabbed my tray of food and dumped the hot chili all over my head, smearing it into my hair. Instead of running off, I stood and faced him, anger filling me as I felt the chili seep through my clothing. It was disgusting, and I was pissed. For once, he looked a little nervous as silence fell over the students in the cafeteria. "Aren't you going to run away?" he asked. I laughed coldly. "Someone needs to stand up to you," I snarled. Leo's eyes widened in surprise, and he quickly stepped away from me. He turned and quickly walked out of the cafeteria. A moment later, he brought a teacher into the room, just as a murmur began rising. A hush fell over the crowd again. "What is going on?" the teacher demanded. Leo had fake tears in his eyes as he pointed at me with a shaky finger. "He was bullying me," he sobbed. "He took my lunch and then dumped it all over himself for some reason." It was such a ridiculous accusation that I couldn't help snorting. A scatter of laughter washed over the students. "Principal's office," he growled. "Now," I stared at him. "No," I said coldly. "Go," the teacher snapped, "before I have to call your parents." "Wait," a girl at another table called suddenly. "I have the whole thing on video. If you don't do anything about Leo, I'll be posting the video to the internet and it will go viral." Leo instantly paled, and so did the teacher. "Delete the video," Leo said. The girl shook her head and smirked. "You're done, Leo." "My dad will kill me," Leo pleaded. I said, "Promise to stop the bullying, and you need some sort of consequence for all the stuff you've done in the past." The teacher sighed. "Let's go, Leo," he said. "Principal's office, and I'll be calling your parents." He grabbed Leo's arm and dragged him out of the cafeteria. The girl came up to me with a sly smile and showed me her phone. I stared at the blank screen in confusion. She laughed. There was no video. Our roof started leaking after a massive flood, and my mom spent her entire paycheck to fix it. But when the contractor showed up, he took the money, then left to get his tools, and never came back. We waited 4 weeks, and our roof was still leaking, and he blocked Mom's number. I urged her to report the fraud, fraud, but she could barely speak English and didn't know how. I was furious, but when I realized he had an actual office, I got an idea. I drove over and applied for a job, and since he didn't recognize me, he hired me on the spot. For months, I mopped his floors and gained his trust, while secretly collecting invoices and finding out everything about his business. I drove to his clients' addresses to see if he ever did the work he was paid for, and at one of the houses, I saw an elderly woman with a broken window he should have fixed 2 weeks ago. She barely spoke English and reminded me of my mom. One day, he pulled me aside, smiling. Remember, kid, single moms, people with no English, the elderly, they are easy money, collect and forget. He laughed, and I wanted to punch him because I realized he was only scamming the vulnerable people who he knew couldn't fight back. I forced myself to laugh with him. Then next day, while he was out for lunch, I snuck into his office. I logged into his computer and went straight to his business accounts. I pulled up every client he had scammed and sent all the money back directly into their accounts. I even compensated them for what they went through. He came back in and saw me at his computer. His account had 0 and freaked out. I trusted you. He picked up his phone to call police, but I just laughed and pulled out all the evidence I'd collected of his scams. He went white as he realized he was screwed, and I told him, now, you're either going to shut down your business, or I'm the one calling the police. He immediately put down the phone and agreed. I immediately forced him to drive back to our house and fix my mom's roof. I did that for every person he had scammed, and after he'd fixed everything for free, I reported him.
Northern Tool Equipment. Get serious.
My mom's roof. I did that for every person he had scammed, and after he'd fixed everything for free, I reported him for fraud anyway. After my sister's funeral, I learned a language only a tiny portion of the human population knows. I watched a specific episode of Teen Titans Go on repeat, where all the characters spoke Pig Latin, which I forgot I had learned until high school. My teacher, Mr. Ham, was a huge language geek and got a kick out of acting like he was smarter than everyone else. One day, I missed an assignment and apologized to Mr. Ham. He said, Aid, ik pay up yai ayai ukpe om time say upidste, which means pick up a book sometime, stupid. I completely understood him, but said nothing. Turns out, he talked crap about every single student in Pig Latin. To the girl students, he'd say, Our yai is bianle, ugsjai arayai oingai otai astawe, which translates to, your lesbian looks are going to waste. I'd see him look at kids with disabilities and hear him say, America's yai exne itest bray homeless hay, meaning America's next brightest homeless. But I knew Mr. Ham's biggest secret. For my next essay, I wrote it in Pig Latin, explaining how I found his degree was actually a 3-month certificate program in South America, just to learn English. The next day, he pulled me aside. He told me, please don't ruin this all for me. I told him I didn't understand, and to repeat it in Pig Latin. That's what this is about? I'll stop speaking it. Please, keep quiet. It was too late. Before I submitted my essay, I already sent a full 15-page document exposing Mr. Ham to the school district. How up it stay of me. Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad would yell, stealth mode, and we had 30 seconds to kill every light in the house. My brother and I would race through the rooms, flipping switches, yanking cords, shutting off the TV mid-show, while some guy outside banged on the front door yelling, I know you're in there, buddy. Dad timed us. Once everything was dark, no talking, no moving, no looking out the windows. We'd sit there until Dad did his owl hoot, which meant all clear. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes almost an hour. Afterwards, he'd high-five us and go, real ninjas couldn't do better. He told us stealth mode was top secret. Never tell your teachers, your friends, nobody. Other people wouldn't understand. For years, I believed him. When I was 8, I asked Dad why we had to hide so much. He said some annoying guy kept bothering our family, and stealth mode was how we dealt with him. I felt proud we had a secret skill that could outsmart bad guys. By the time I was 10, I heard the voice outside yell something about a bet and $20. I tugged Dad's sleeve and whispered, is the bad guy trying to steal our money? Dad shushed me so hard I flinched. When I was 12, I broke the window rule, peeked through the blinds and saw a completely normal guy in a polo shirt standing on the porch rubbing his forehead. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like someone's tired uncle. At 13, I told Dad I was just going to open the door and tell the guy to leave us alone. The color left his face. You absolutely cannot do that. That was the first time stealth mode didn't feel like a game. By 15 or 16, it barely happened anymore. But when it did, Dad would peek through the blinds looking guilty. Mom just shook her head from the couch and muttered something under her breath. I was 17 and home alone when I heard it. I know you're in there. It's been 12 years, man. I opened the front door. The guy nearly fell backwards. Normal-looking dude, middle-aged, holding a crumpled piece of paper. Oh, hi. Is your dad home? I'm his old college roommate. He held up the paper. Your old man bet me $20 Michael Jordan wouldn't win his 6th ring. That was 1998. I've been knocking on this door ever since. He handed me the IOU, both their signatures, right there at the bottom. I left it on the kitchen table. Mom saw it first and laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Dad picked it up, read it, put it back down, and the first thing thing out of his mouth was, "So now he knows someone's home." Then he turned off the kitchen light and got under the table. We were never in danger. My dad just lost a bet because of the greatest of all time.